Posted by Baby Sherlock 91. A man who has watched me for over a year, just kidnapped and assaulted someone. Nearly 2 years ago, my husband and I moved to a pretty safe town. We decided to have some fun while we're young and child-free, so we got an apartment downtown. It's super fun, it's on top of a shopping center with restaurants, boutiques, a theater, all kinds of stuff. We've had a blast living here and I've always felt very safe. I like to go on walks. Since the area is so busy, I've always just walked here when I'm alone. I go on a walk about every other day, less in the winter. Anyway, for 2 years I've seen this older man sitting in the shopping center. He always gave me a really bad feeling, so if I came upon him I tried to divert my path. But I felt bad for judging. I said, maybe I'm just paranoid. Well, the other night there was a shooting in the shopping center. It was around 10 o'clock at night, and I never go out that late by myself, so I didn't even know about it until the next morning. It turns out, that same older man had kidnapped a woman in the shopping center at gunpoint, assaulted her, and tried to drive away with her. Her husband drove after them and shot at the guy. She was rescued and he is in jail. He admitted to the police that he's been stalking that shopping center for victims, watching the women around there. I cannot tell you how many times in the past 2 years I have crossed paths with this man. How many times I felt guilty for feeling uncomfortable around him. How many times I was right in his path, an easy target. Always trust your gut. Always. Posted by Vegetable Sky 1280. Snowy day run-in. For some background, I'm a male in my late 20s, living in northern Canada. Last weekend, I got a call from a friend telling me that while on his ski-doo ride, he went by my cabin, as it was on his route, and that it looked like, just as I was about to leave, I got this gut feeling that something was wrong and that I should take a rifle just in case. Better to be safe than sorry. As I started my ride into the woods, I noticed the sky getting darker, and think to myself, great, now I'll have a storm to deal with too. Luckily it wasn't a snowstorm but a thick fog that rolled in fast. There is nothing more unsettling than being alone in the wood, encased in a thick fog, especially with God knows what around you. I finally get to my cabin and sure enough all of my windows are smashed. I unload my gear and get to work, trying to get my cabin secure as fast as I can and get the hell out of there. At some point I feel like I'm being watched, which gives me a lump in my throat because I can't see anything in this fog. I hear something moving through the trees and automatically grab my rifle and put my back to the cabin, hoping that if something comes out of the fog I'll be ready for it. My first thought was it was the asshole who broke into my cabin, coming back under the cover of the fog to see what else they could take. But then I realized that no skidoo approached me, as I would have heard one from miles away as it was so quiet out there. After waiting a while with no more noises coming from the woods, I go back to work, get my windows fixed and return back to my skidoo to get the hell out of there. After a short ride, I notice something that looks like potholes in the middle of the trail. Turns out to be polar bear tracks, leading towards my cabin. That creepy feeling of being watched and the noises from the woods was a polar bear stalking me, and was the actual culprit of the break-in at my cabin. What disturbs me most is that I would never see it coming with all that fog that day, and my rifle would be practically useless against such a big animal. To this day I feel lucky to be alive. Posted by Annie the Bone Annie. I heard him at my window. I need to explain 2 things before I tell this story. First, I have a sleep disorder and I've had it my whole life. I sleepwalk. Nothing too dramatic, mostly just do everyday things while sleeping, open the fridge, put clothes in the washer without starting it, take the vacuum out of the closet and set it in the middle of the room and leave. That sort of thing. When I was younger this was an every night occurrence. Second, I am native. I have a healthy respect for the stories of spirits my ancestors told. Many hunting trips I would sit around the fire with my dad listening to him tell stories of the tricks Wendigo play to try to lure you to them. While I'm unsure if I believe the stories of skinwalkers and Wendigo, I don't tend to mess around. Just in case. Shoot to roughly 3 weeks ago. My husband and I both work construction. We have hard, long and rewarding days. Once dinner is over and planning for the next day is complete, the dogs have been taken out for the last time, our heads hit the pillows and it's lights out until the alarm sounds. We sleep like the dead. Our bedroom is fairly good sized and has a small bay window in the corner. My husband liked to sleep with fresh air so he takes the window side of the bed. This particular night though something woke me up. I never wake up. Dogs were quiet. Typical northwest weather, rain quietly taping away, no thunder, no heavy winds. I looked the dark and quiet room over and nothing was out of place. The only noise besides the rain was my husband's box fan gently humming away. I was confused but decided to adjust my blankets, flip my pillow and go back to sleep. As I closed my eyes and took a deep breath to relax, I heard my husband, "Babe, babe, come out here and give me a hand with the boys." Confused and still foggy from being woken from a deep sleep a few seconds earlier, I opened my eyes to the pitch black of the room again. Rarely one of our 3 dogs will need to go out at night, and if one goes they all will go. We live in an incredibly rural area and it's easy for them to get lost in the dark woods. Not a good thing when you have bears, coyotes, cougars and whatever else on your property. "Babe, babe, can you come out here and help me with the boys?" He called again, voice right against the half-open window, not concerned, just demanding. Annoyed and groggy, I leaned up, propping myself up on a stiff pile of blankets to look at the window. It was too dark to see him. The floodlight is on the other side of the house. "Babe, come outside," my husband demanded. It was the third beckon that bothered me. He was never that pushy. If something was wrong, one of the dogs wandered off, he would say that. It's happened before. He would something like, "Come watch these 2 real quick, I can't find Murph," something like that. Something wasn't right. I was regaining my focus and shaking off the sleepies, quite awake at this point. I knew it was him. My husband has a very distinct voice. He's a Sicilian from Queens and has a very deep, unintentionally loud voice. It was at that moment, staring out the black window, I realized I wasn't leaning on a pile of blankets. The pile of blankets was breathing. I was leaning on my sleeping husband, listening to him call to me from outside the window. "Babe, come outside." The voice came again from the window. I put my hand down on my husband's face. He was there, asleep next to me. But his voice, or what I thought was him, was at the window. I laid down next to him. Very, very close to him, and closed my eyes very tight. In moments like these, I'm the type to just try and pretend it's not happening. I didn't hear it again and spent the next half of the night trying to fight off the spookies, and had at some point finally fell asleep. I told my husband about it the next morning after his "Oh my God, you look like death" comment. I hadn't slept well. He laughed it off as I had probably had a creepy sleepwalking thing. Thing is, when I have a sleepwalking event, I remember nothing. I don't recall dreaming, walking or anything from those nights, no matter how hard I try. It's like a blackout. I am sure I was awake for this. Every time I think of it these past few weeks, I remember those hunting trips, poking coals around in the fire with a stick while my dad tells his serious yet animated tales of Wendigo tricks to get you to come to them. As silly as it sounds, I think there's a Wendigo in my woods. Posted by Annie. The Bone Annie. Update: I heard him at me window. So, an update. It has been almost 5 weeks now since the nighttime incident. While we have yet to hear the voice again, there have been other things. I'll explain. First, if you have sensitivity to stories involving hunting, I will handle this as respectfully as possible. As I've said before, we live in a heavily wooded area that is very rural. As such, our sleepy plot of land is populated by all sorts of wildlife: bear, cougars, coyotes, elk, pretty much anything the Pacific Northwest has to offer. Our land also has a small creek and ponds towards the back, so this makes it quite the popular spot for our area's wildlife. To explain why recent events are so alarming, I have to explain something first. Most everyone leaves our farm in peace, except the coyotes. We don't clear more land than we need to for pasture and gardens, so in most spots the tree line comes right up to us. I have made an agreement with the coyotes. The woods is theirs, but if they cross the tree line they are in danger. When the coyotes try to hunt the livestock, baby goats, poultry, and cross the tree line, I have to hunt one. I place that coyote's body just behind the shade of the last tree to our clearing and lay him there. I leave him there for a few days, then bury him in that spot. People don't properly understand how smart coyotes are. Once they investigate this fallen friend, they stay away from the clearing for years. I also make sure my smell is there as well. I've seen them watch me from the tree line afterwards. They make a different sound, not their normal yipping but more of a chatter before leaving. They won't come near me or the clearing. It sounds cruel, but this keeps me from having to constantly shoot them, and we live in relative peace, respectfully. It has been a while since the voice calling me at the window, just days after I notice my husband in the grips of a battle with depression. He has struggles every now and again, but this time he was hit hard, deeply and fast. I watched him now at night toss and turn. He grumbles and barely gets any rest. He wakes up aggressive, short-tempered and exhausted. We've even fought due to my own recent shortness. We have had a wonderfully warm and very wet spring here. My daffodils should be fully flowered. They aren't. They haven't even shown themselves. Our wild roses bushes should be budding, however they remain barren, heavily thorned and brown. Same with the wild flowering trees around us. Barren. The only thing that grows are the stinging nettles and sticker bushes. There are no robins or goldfinches, no songbirds have returned, only in areas outside my woods. Turning the dirt for the vegetable garden resulted in dirt that smelled foul, like rotten meat foul. Coming home to the farm I love feels like putting on a wet jacket, it's cold, heavy. 2 nights ago, I was woken up from a heavy sleep by my dogs. Barking in the living room. Barking as if a stranger was out there. Rapid aggressive barks and snarls. I was alarmed, no one would be here unless there was extreme trouble. People tend to be afraid of 2 of them. They are 250 pounds English Mastiffs. The other is a lab mix, bless his heart. He tries to be scary. I jumped out of the bed and threw on my long bathrobe, glasses and started down the long hallway that separates the bedrooms from the kitchen and living room. The wood floors under my feet were abnormally cold looking back now. I jogged to the front door completely bypassing the dogs. I looked through the decorative glass to see nothing under the pale glow of the porch light. No one was here. I opened the door and stepped out onto the porch so I could see my barn. I struggled to see through the light fog, rain and dark. Thankfully the door to the goats and kids was safely closed, a warm red glow in the cracks of the door from the heat lamps was dimly shining. I was relieved, I worry about the babies all the time in kidding season. I was snapped out of my momentary relief as I heard from in the house my dogs still frantically barking. I scurried off the porch as fast as I could back into the house slamming and locking the heavy front door. I looked for my dogs who were all lined up at the large bay window in the dining room, so angry there was drool and nose prints all over the glass. I ran over to look out and could see nothing. Not only is it impossibly dark on that side of the house, the window was covered in rain. I flicked on the porch light and couldn't see anything but the raised porch that wrapped around the back side of the house. I said, "Boys. Stop. To no avail. So still having no clue what the cause of their anger was, I unlocked the back door and made my way, albeit slowly, across the back porch to the railing. My heart was in my throat and my glasses were rain-soaked. I slowly pulled them off my face as I leaned over the railing to look. Not 1, not 2 but 7 coyotes were in my yard, coyotes that run for their lives at the slightest hint of my smell let alone the sight of me. They were only a few feet away from me. They looked at me but only briefly. They stared at the woods, not moving, petrified of what was out there. They were all standing defensively, broadside staring into the woods. I called down to them, "PSSSSH, go on, outta here." They looked at me again and then straight back to the woods unmoving. They felt safer near me. Coyotes outrun bears, harass cougars and aren't afraid of much. They fear me only because they've seen me kill one of their own as a warning to the rest. Yet they felt safer by me. What in God's name was in the woods? I listened as hard as I could through the rain. I heard twigs snapping quite a distance away in the unending darkness and silence of my woods but nothing that would give me any clue. I decided I should listen to the coyotes and get back in the house. Something out there that night was worse than the death I brought them. And that's all I have for you all. Oh. The rabbits. As I had said in my earlier post, I'm native. There has been over the past few weeks an influx in wild rabbits all over the property. Bunnies everywhere. I mentioned it to my dad that it must have been a good breeding season for the rabbits and told him about the population around the clearing. My dad's words. The rabbit means a lot of different things to our tribal cousins, but to us we see the rabbit as prey. As a prey animal they know dangers, we see them as a warning. If a rabbit continues to cross your path you are in danger, you are being hunted.